Hey, it's David with No Chaser. And for today's episode, I'm going to talk about something that has came up a lot just through talking with other people that maybe aren't as informed about alcoholism or addiction, or just kind of some mild debate in kind of the recovery community. And that is the idea of a functioning alcoholic. I mean, you could also include functioning addict in this as well, but I mean, more often you hear functioning alcoholic just because, alcoholics are usually, at least, I was going to say more common, but at least mainly more known as like a day-to-day thing. Like you've seen a lot through media and television shows and films, like the idea of the functioning alcoholic. Like usually in, TV shows and movies and even songs and stuff like that, the addict is seen as like this hopeless, just Skid Row type person. And that is definitely, not always the case by any means. And then alcoholics, I mean, there's plenty of sitcoms or dramas or just things out there where it shows the person just kind of getting by. It's almost kind of like a joke in some shows that it's just like, oh yeah, he's the alcoholic type of deal. But I mean, when you really think about it, like the debate comes down to, I mean, sometimes it's semantics. Like people will say, there's no such thing as a functioning alcoholic. And what they kind of mean by that is that you can't really live your life with any sort of contentment, or you can't be a really productive member of society. But in a sense, at least I think is that you can certainly get by. Now, life is not about getting by, hopefully. I mean, sometimes it is, but I mean getting by as in paying the bills, just doing kind of like the bare minimum. And some people, that I've met throughout recovery in their stories and, in their past, they were actually, maybe thriving or just doing well. In fact, I've known quite a few people who it is because of the external things, like the money they make and things that they provide for their family, or the, career they have or anything like that, where that is actually kind of what helps the facade of their life to keep people at bay. I've known people, and I've kind of done this myself, where I wanted to make sure I've kept everything on the up and up just so I could continue to drink. And, as far as my sort of drinking career was, and someone recently asked me in one of the comments, like, had I ever done drugs or anything like that? And like I like to say, I have dual citizenship, as so to speak. I actually started out with drugs as far as a real addiction. I drank and like smoked weed first when I was, 13, 14, and it was just kind of like an experimenting experience with some friends and stuff. But when I really got hooked, and like immediately hooked, was with Vicodin back when I was 15 years old. And I, wasn't, I was mainly, I still drank, and I still drank alcoholically, but I really struggled with drugs for about 4 years. I went to a methadone clinic, like all that type of good stuff, but all that type of stuff. And, when I first went to treatment when I was 19, and it was for drugs. And then I thought, well, just drugs were the problem. Alcohol should be fine. Very stupid. And if anything, I remember at that time, I was like, well, that whole drug addiction thing to opiates was just a dark period of my life, but now I'm ready to move on. And it's like, no, we are just getting started, because alcohol would be, I call myself an alcoholic. I could say alcoholic addict, but I just, it doesn't really matter to me. It's all the same in my mind. But with that being said, I functioned for a little bit, going to college and working part-time and just kind of doing whatever. But it quickly got out of hand. But alcohol, when I started that, it rose. I mean, like I said, I always drank alcoholically, but it rose pretty quickly. And I would say there's almost like two chapters of my life, or two periods, if you want to think of it as BC and AD on the timeline, of where I drank basically every day. And I wasn't like a blackout or blotto type drinker. I just drank enough to kind of keep a buzz up just throughout the day. And it progressed as it usually does, to where it was, weekdays I'd do it, and then sometimes a break at work, and then during work. And, eventually it was just the tolerance went up, and it just started to spiral. And, for the past about 5.5 years now, it's been mostly sober. But when I drink, there's no sort of maintenance thing like that. It is strictly just like, a hard relapse where it's just a bender of binge drinking and fatalism and starting to go crazy and all that type of stuff. And the thing is that I couldn't even function anymore. And, there's times where I've thought to myself, if I was truly honest, I would think like, if I could still be a functioning alcoholic, I might still be drinking, which is kind of a sad thing to think, but I think there is, if I could look at it in a sort of positive light, some silver lining is that it's almost good that I've just become non-functional in my drinking, because that is what is prompting me to, try at recovery with all that I have, because there simply is just no life for me with alcohol in it, like no life whatsoever. I can't be anything. I'll just find myself homeless, suicidal, I can't even remember really the last time I was able to go on like a real bender, like drinking day after day after day for more than a week, because of how crazy it gets. But this gets back to kind of the topic at hand of the idea of the functioning alcoholic, because you kind of ask yourself what it means to function. And like I said before, some people, just keeping up with things they have to do. And you find this a lot of the case where you'll see, I know plenty of women when they have children, and at a younger age, like certainly in the pregnancy, they'll stay sober. And then they kind of temper their drinking when they're, if they're the ones that are supposed to be just raising the children within their family or the way it's set up. And then the more kind of autonomous the kids become, then the drinking kind of starts to kick in. And, you think of these ideas of performing basic functions, and this also, this could kind of scatter into different modes of alcoholism. I know some people that didn't drink day to day, and there's a lot of people that don't do that, but when they do drink, they drink to excess every single time. And basically when they drink, they aren't functional. They get really, really drunk and crazy and impulsive, and, like most people do, but to an extreme level. And then they kind of just grind through the hangovers, throughout the day. But they don't drink during the day or anything like that. And so they are able to, function because they're not drinking all the time. But when they do drink, it makes their life totally just out of control. And, people kind of find themselves to their rock bottoms, or they find themselves to the destruction of their life just in different ways. I've known someone that strictly for about 20 years only drank on the weekends, didn't even drink once during like the weeknights or anything. But the drinking was so bad on the weekends, it just started to take its toll. And they're like, I may not drink like some of the other alcoholics do, but I am sincerely an alcoholic. And some people, as I said, it was kind of a silver lining that I can't function with drinking anymore, so it prompts me to try to get help to the best of my ability. You could also think of it as a curse for some people who have been able to function with drinking for a very, very long time. I know people that when I went to treatment with, and they were, in their 50s, and it was their first time going to treatment, or in AA meetings, and it was their first AA meeting, because they were just kind of able to do whatever they needed to do, and they were able, like I said, to work, and they could kind of, compartmentalize their drinking within their life to where they hadn't gotten to a point where they really, really needed help. Now, mind you, their lives were miserable for a really long time. I've heard people lament that in this, in the 20 or 30 years that they spent drinking, even though they were able to do, what they needed to do. One, as I mentioned before, it was the bare minimum, and just getting by doesn't seem like a good recipe for a life. And two, just internally, like one of the things is that a lot of people bring up the, kind of the milestone-ish, or the big sort of tangible things of like drinking was bad because I like lost the house, lost relationships, lost jobs, lost all this type of stuff. But let's say even if you didn't lose those things, it's just also a miserable experience to be a person active in alcoholism. And going back to the idea of the functioning addict, I mean, I've met certainly many of those where, as crazy as it may seem to, some people out there, there's people that just, they do meth for like 20, 25 years. And they use it. It helps them work. And some people really struggle with trying to get off meth because it has actually become ingrained in their work life or career. I mean, obviously, it's destroying it too, but they can't find a way to get back in whatever groove they have. But plenty of people, I know people that own their own businesses. I mean, you see this a lot in sort of like the trade sort of job, and with people, and not just because it's, you know, more blue collar, but also because it's one where you can kind of relatively function on a contractual job. You know, if you run your own business, you do contract work, you don't have to enforce drug tests on yourself. That'd be weird. But you also can just kind of get by because everybody needs that service, and you don't have to work within a sort of like a corporation or a, you know, some sort of like a typical business structure. And, you know, usually what you'll see is that people can still get by as well too. A frightening amount of people that are within the medical community get addicted to painkillers. And it seems with opiates that it's, you know, unlike alcohol or methamphetamines, it's whether it's painkillers, heroin, or fentanyl, you're kind of less likely to be able to function for a while. And again, this isn't some morality thing by any means, and it's not some sort of who's capable and who's not. You know, it's just kind of the effects that the drugs have on you, the effects, the influence or confluence rather of society, what your like career, what your life is, and how drugs affect you. You know, certainly, obviously, you could kind of see how you could get away with meth use for maybe longer because of the sort of energy and what it provides, and depending on, you know, the type of work that you can do. Is, you know, people abuse Adderall sometimes so they could work better or study better or things like that, and you can just imagine what meth would do. But that is to say, of course, that it all comes to the fact that it will break you down. And no matter what, the drugs went out. We will all lose the drug war in our head, and kind of also in society as well too. But I don't mean to get political here, but I mean, you know. But so the idea of this functioning alcoholic, what I really take from it, kind of the point that I wanted to instill in here is that, you know, I almost, it seems weird because of the extreme lows that I've hit, but I almost sympathize for the people that are able to get away with it longer, because ultimately you can keep them in the addiction longer. Now, you could look at the other side too, where I've certainly had close calls with death and close calls with, you know, just a complete destruction of my mind because of how acutely destructive my alcohol use is. But I mean, the one thing is that it, you know, it takes away a lot of the horsepower of delusion, where you really can't, when it becomes as bad or you drink like I do, you can't delude yourself into thinking that you'll drink normal. That's what keeps a lot of people drinking or relapsing too, is that they long for the ability to drink like a normal person, which is a topic I've covered a lot. But, you know, when you get to such out of control drinking, even if it's just in small spurts, and even if the spurts become farther and farther apart as far as sobriety is concerned, it's too stark of a, you know, of evidence in your face that you're like, I can't do this, man, and there's no way I can function. And, you know, trying to be a more positive person, I guess I can take solace in the fact that, you know, I know what's ahead of me. Now, making the commitment and putting in the effort that I've always needed to do, and relying and being able to reach out to other people is the key part. But it's no mystery to me of whether I can drink or not. I am not a functioning alcoholic anymore. I'm a recovering non-functioning alcoholic. Anyways, I hope you were able to get something from this. I always forget to plug this, but if you enjoy these videos and things like that, I do have a podcast called Shoeless in South Dakota. And also I will be dropping, people have talked to me before if I would ever do a podcast like this. Well, I'll be dropping hopefully weekly episodes that are of just me, and, you know, they expand more upon stuff than addiction and mental health and things like that, just into life and sociological stuff. If you're interested, you know, check that out. Hopefully one of those episodes will be dropping soon. But again, please, I think you'll enjoy it. Please subscribe to Shoeless in South Dakota. And thank you again for watching this. I really appreciate all you guys and the support you give me and give each other in the comments and everything like that. That's awesome. And I hope all of you can, whatever you're dealing with, you can get through, make a better life for yourselves. And I don't know, other than that, be well. Click.